Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales, and welcome back to Cincinnati Chronicles. It's been a while without checking it in any way, and thus without any real information. I'm going to say that we last saw Cincinnati Chronicles back in March, something like that, with our Mage the Ascension arc. We're 3 arcs deep, and now it's time for the 4th. Rage? No, Wraith. Rage is something entirely different, although still a World of Darkness concept. Wraith, the Oblivion, the notoriously difficult to run and play, critically acclaimed installment back from the mid-90s of a game of existential terror, Oblivion, and existing against the battering fury of annihilation. So a fun, light-hearted time for all the family, clearly. If you are joining us for the first time here, Cincinnati Chronicles is an ongoing World of Darkness anthology series telling 5 different stories set over the same day in the same city on one hot July day in 1995. So they're kind of separate stories, but sort of linked. You definitely get more from them if you kind of watch them all in order. But they certainly also serve as standalone tales. So yeah, that's what we're here for tonight. Let's do a bit of promo before we start wheeling out the players and they can talk about their spectral characters. We are telling tales, and if you look below, you will find a bunch of links to YouTube, links to Twitch. You're watching on one, please check out the other. Our YouTube has a vast catalog of actual plays at this point from all sorts of systems. There's also links to our social media, our Discord, and our Patreon. If those are the kind of things that interest you, please do have a look at them. Currently, we run 3 weekly ongoing series. Mondays is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Wednesdays is Into the Odd, and Thursdays is this, Cincinnati Chronicles. We also run about once a month a one-shot. They're all on our YouTube as well if you want to check them out. The most recent of which was Death in Space. And the next one coming up is on Saturday, June the 18th, which is Mork Borg. A sequel to one from last year, but again, you don't have to watch it to enjoy it. That is also going to be the venue of a lovely Mork Borg based giveaway. So if that interests you, please do turn up for that. But there we go. Without any further notice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wheel on the players one by one, and then they'll talk a bit about their characters, and then I'll talk just very slightly about the concept of Wraith. Because it is quite a torturous one to wrap your brain around. And then we will head straight into our arc. As for the order in which I'm going to bring people on, I didn't determine this beforehand, like a terrible, terrible streaming storyteller. But I can see that John, who handles our images, has his own character art lined up. So we're going to start with John. So here we go. Hello, John.
Hello, Matt.
John is playing Abby Atkinson. Why don't you pop up the art for Abby and talk to us about her?
So Abby is or was a very notable children's author with a very long-running series of very wholesome books called Charlie and Churro. Which was always a sore point for her because she would much rather have been known for her gritty detective noir stories. But people only ever remember Charlie and Churro. And then she died, and she's not quite sure how or who did it, but she is determined to catch her own killer.
And essentially play a part in her own spectral noir novel.
Yes, she's just kicking herself that she hadn't thought of this premise before she died, to be honest.
Sure, yeah. Well, we are now, 7 minutes into the stream, and I've used the word spectral twice. So clearly, I need to wheel out my mental thesaurus a bit more. To help me with that, I don't know why I'm picking him as the person who would. Let's bring on Pierre. Pierre is playing Ronan Kayat. yeah, Pierre, why don't you tell us about the being formerly known as Ronan Kayat?
Yeah, well, he was a tailor, and he did various. He in his profession he got to talk to many people. Some of them good, few of them good. But he was something of a mediator in life, and he was a person who you could trust to communicate certain things to other individuals who might come to your shop from time to time. Yeah, like Abby, he's not entirely sure what happened when he was killed, but he feels like something's profoundly wrong, and yeah, he's not sure why. Just something seems off.
Something seems off and unusual about this murder of a mob tailor / mediator. Something maybe illegal was afoot.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Wouldn't want to speculate.
Absolutely. Well, that is Pierre and Ronan Kayat. Let's now bring on Inga, who's going to be playing Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Tammy, Inga?
Yeah, so she was quite young, really, when she died. She was kind of a promising tennis player, was really her main thing. And, sort of, very, very much in training and probably going to do reasonably well. You would have been competing pretty hard when she died. She is was a very determined individual, as I think you have to be if you're going to go seriously into competitive sports like that, and is pretty convinced that she does also similarly doesn't know exactly how she died, but is pretty convinced it must have been a deliberate thwarting of her ambitions and something, deliberate, whether that's the case or not. But there must have been a purpose. She can't have had her ambitions unfulfilled without reason. That's Tammy.
There was definitely reason in this ignorant, uncaring universe for the death of Tammy, I'm sure. Let's wheel out our final player. It's everyone's favorite, Chris, playing Brian. A wonderful. I love this character. Chris, why don't you walk us through Brian, please?
Brian knows exactly how and when he died. It was a horrific driving accident when he was visiting Cincinnati. In life, Brian was a well-renowned and respected computer scientist, largely responsible for some pretty core database innovations, which have been sitting at the heart of kind of mainframe financial services processing for the last 5 or 10 years. And in life, he was a workaholic, and in death, that inertia has kind of carried him through, not staying around because of any great drama or great unsolved moment of his life, just because he's always been at work, so he may as well keep working.
Absolutely, sounds familiar. So that is our circle of wraiths. Although they may not be too tightly associated with us, with each other as our story begins. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Wraith, the Oblivion. We won't go into full details on the World of Darkness because we don't have time. Go look at Wikipedia. But in terms of Wraith, the Oblivion, wraiths are beings who wake up following their deaths in a place called the Shadowlands, which is a sort of dark spiritual realm layered over our world being what the wraiths call the Skinlands. Wraiths can only affect the Skinlands in very limited ways, and it usually costs them a fair bit of sort of energy and, or more accurately, a mechanic and fuel called pathos to do so. And on this other side, in which they are constantly battered by the dark side of their own individual souls, which are termed shadows. They are constantly lured by their shadows, by specters, by other horribleness, to a force called Oblivion, which is annihilation, the end of self. and in an effort to band together and hold off that, they have formed deep in the Shadowlands. And it's worth thinking of the Shadowlands as a kind of like, it talks about it in terms of being an onion in the book, where there are parts of it where most of our story will take place that are layered over the real world, and you can interact and see it happen. But deeper into the Shadowlands, as you burrow deeper into this existence, you pass through a place called the Tempest, an eternal swirling storm of nothingness and existence battering against each other. And within that, islands of physical, of kind of like pseudo physical reality, containing kingdoms of the dead, of the restless, including one called Stygia, which is the one like the dominant one, which certainly I would imagine our wraiths here have never been to Stygia, but they exist within its boundaries. And this place Stygia is run by an organization called the Hierarchy, that do the will of individuals called Death Lords, who live up to that name in every respect. And this hierarchy operates necropoli out in the Shadowlands near the real world. And our story takes place in a necropolis called Necropolis Cincinnati, layered over the real city of Cincinnati. Yeah, I could go way more into the cosmology of Wraith because it is deep and rich and highly depressing, but we will pick up just there where we are. And there's a lot of mechanics to this one, folks. So bear with us as we try and steer the ship Wraith the Oblivion in a course. None of us have played this specific system before, although we're all by now World of Darkness veterans. So we'll see how it works out. What we are going to do is we are going to pick up with each of our wraiths in order, and have a little scene setting things up and catching up a bit about their existence and how they pass their time. And I'm going to do this entirely randomly because I'm a glutton for punishment. So our first scene is going to be with Ronan Kayat. Ronan, you are in the, I believe your haunt, the place where you generally exist as a wraith, is your tailor's shop. Yeah. The bottom part of which has now been converted after following your death. Did we determine what kind of store it was?
I don't think so.
Okay, shall we say it's like an IT store?
Yeah.
Like something completely at odds with
with the original, very classy, very like I cultivated a whole image of this place.
Yeah. But they don't need a lot of storage because they're selling. So they mostly order stuff in, so they just use like a back room for that. So the upper rooms where you'd carry out your actual tailoring, where your mirror stands and all that kind of thing, they are empty and locked up. And occasionally the employees talk to each other of odd kind of chills and strange noises, like as if someone's walking upstairs. But we pick up in that upstairs empty area, and all your worldly trade goods were moved from this place upon your death. There's no bolts of fabric. There's no kind of mannequins or anything like that. The only things that have been left, a couple of tables, one of which had a set of your tailor's shears on them, and your mirror standing there now gathering dust. And it's there we find you doing whatever Ronan may do to pass the time when at his haunt. It is a bright day outside, and even within the Shadowlands, even with the tinge of darkness and grayness and monochrome that filters over the world, it is still a bright day. But that brightness is perhaps, it's like the contrast has been turned up on the world. The darks and the lights are even more extreme than they were. And as you stand there in the shadow, watching kind of like dust slowly drift in the light beam from one almost shuttered window, you suddenly blink and kind of come to awareness again. Maybe you were in a reverie, maybe you were lost in one of your passions or your memories. Either way, what would Ronan like to do?
Like having been stirred by, I guess perhaps a flash of light from the window or glinting on the dust. I think I'll sort of walk over to the window and see if there is anything out in the world, out at that any sign that perhaps this business below is failing.
Sure.
Which I long for, but
absolutely. You look out onto the street, and it's a relatively busy Cincinnati street. You can see the quick, the mortals, the humans, the still living, going about their business. They're kind of almost to you, they almost look like shades moving with odd speed through their brief lives. You can see cars moving down below. You can see kind of people going in and out of the store, and almost you can hear the hubbub from below, but even though it's muffled by the floor, it seems like there's an extra muffling, like it's an echo coming from somewhere far away. That's not unusual. This is just what it's like to exist in the Shadowlands. The street itself looks, it looks like a relatively thriving urban street, but there's elements of it that just seem to be crumbling. A few of the windows feel like they're going to crack, and the pavement and the road almost seem to be buckling in front of your eyes. But this is just the veneer of the Shadowlands telling you the inevitable fate of all these things.
I sort of sigh, and I go. I actually think to myself when I sort of see the kind of cracking of the sidewalk and the like sense of decay, I sort of think to myself for a moment, and then I assume that the electricity to downstairs, like it's the middle of the day, I'm assuming, but still the lights are on.
I'll tell you the exact time, in fact, because while that might not particularly help you pick this, it's actually regular viewers will know that's actually quite useful to know when in the context of our day that this takes place. And I will tell you right now that the time as we're talking is about, well, you know what? It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon or evening. So you know what? Maybe there you can actually hear like customers being ushered out below as the shop kind of wraps up for the day.
Okay. Well, if it's wrapping up, what I might do is I have an idea to maybe undermine this shop in my ongoing quest. Obviously, there are electronics involved in this shop, and I'd like to see if I can go down perhaps and maybe cause some havoc or cause some destruction to them in subtle ways that might undermine this shop's performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
why not?
I would like to go down and see what I can see.
As you do that, kind of like maybe starting to stride towards the door downstairs with some kind of renewed purpose, could you give me a perception plus alertness roll, please? Our old friend, perception plus alertness. And unless I give you a difficulty, it's difficulty 6. So,
okay.
Again, we're not going to run through World of Darkness die rolling mechanics, folks. Look them up, or I think we probably explained them in the very first episode of our vampire arc. So
I'm rolling 3 dice, and I've got 9, 8, 8, which means 3 successes.
Perfect. It is then instant as you turn round from kind of gazing out of the window, kind of unsure how long you were stood there and how long you were looking. Your eyes drift over the kind of emptiness of this, your former shop. You see the mirror, you see the tables. You do not see your tailor's shears.
Okay, I stop what I was doing and start frantically looking around for those shears.
Absolutely. To give some context to that, friends out there, Pierre's tailor shears are one of Ronan's fetters, one of the things that still exist in the Skinlands, in the physical world, that help Ronan hold on as a wraith and to hold off the wave of Oblivion that seeks to claim him. Why don't you give me a perception plus investigation roll to have a look around and see what? There's not a lot of places they could be here.
Yeah, no, it's not a super.
I'm imagining it's like one very large room, maybe with a couple of smaller storage rooms off the side, but all the doors are open. It's all wood. Like old creaky wooden floors and brick surround it. It's not a big place.
So that was 8, 6, 6. So that's 3 successes.
Okay. You do not find your shears.
And I'm pretty sure they're
What
not
you
here.
do find is a patch, a shears-shaped patch of non-dust on the dusty table that they sat on. You do not see any disturbance in the dust on the floor.
Okay, so then I think it must be something that, perhaps something incorporeal. Is there a way that I can sense the death, like the presence of, or the previous presence of?
There's no like automatic wraithly thing that would.
Sorry, I thought there was like death vision or something that.
Death sight, yeah, it allows you to see weaknesses and and general bad things in individuals or objects that you're looking at.
Okay,
but it doesn't let you like sense wraiths or anything like that.
I sort of pause for a moment, and I think if there's anyone who knows, who is a wraith that I know that I can talk to about locating things, perhaps.
Well, I thank you for that prompt, Pierre, because I know for sure that you have someone in mind. But yes, as I mentioned to the players before, I gave them a little list of wraith characters they know in the necropolis of Cincinnati, and one of them is called Amelia Perfect, and Amelia Perfect is a monitor. Someone who practices life web, the wraithly art of locating and interacting with fetters. You have definitely dealt with Emily. Sorry, it's not Amelia, it's Emily. You've definitely dealt with Emily before, because you can't use life web, and sometimes every wraith needs to use life web. And you know that her office that she operates out of is in an area of Cincinnati called Northside, which is quite a kind of bohemian place. Probably not far from your shop, maybe. Yeah, but it does look like it certainly seems that certainly no mortal, no member of the Quick came in here and took this.
Yeah.
So
I think I will, perhaps in vain, try to brush off some of the dust that has accumulated on me. And straighten my
that dust will pass right through you.
Yep. Oh, that's true.
The dust is real, you're not.
Oh, you had to remind me. Yeah, and I'll sort of straighten my suit and get ready, and then I'll stride outwards in the direction of that bohemian location.
Absolutely. Are you going to you're not on the way going to try and interfere with the shop or anything? Are you a bit laser focused on this?
I think at this point, seeing that my fetter is missing, I don't think I have time to.
Sure. Okay. Well, here we go. So another thing to introduce folks. Remember I mentioned those shadows that sit inside every wraith? Well, Wraith has a troop play concept where everyone plays their own wraith and another wraith shadow. The shadow of Ronan Kayat is played by John. And it sounds like John, playing the shadow, has something to say or something to do, because that's what that background means. John.
Come on. They've been missing for a while. You can take an extra couple of minutes, lay the groundwork, spook a little downstairs. What's the harm?
I mean, no harm. No harm at all, I suppose. I suppose I have a moment. A moment wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And I reach the door, and then I kind of pull back, and I go, it'll hardly take a second, and then I sort of turn, and I guess in this shop there are some various computers.
Yeah.
I guess what I will do is walk over to one of the computers and use decay, I suppose.
Oh, is this flux? This is your arcanoid flux.
This is an arcanoid flux. It causes deterioration in even the strongest relics or material objects. Metal oxidizes and develops stress fractures. So the idea would be
like flux level 2, right?
Flux level 3.
Level 3. Wow. Okay.
Well, because there's rot, but it doesn't have effect on like metal and ceramics and durable materials. And I'm assuming that the computers are made out of something more.
They absolutely will be. Yes.
Pretty durable.
Well, now I've tried to find the power that does that, and my PDF has immediately crashed.
So I've got the mechanism for it. So I spend 2 pathos, and I roll dexterity plus flux. So I'm spending my pathos. It says
normal difficulty in the Shadowlands. Does that normal difficulty in the Shadowlands? So what is the normal difficulty? Difficulty 6 increasing. No, hang on.
Difficulty 6 in the Tempest. Difficulty 5 in the Labyrinth.
It says normal difficulty in the Shadowlands, but normal difficulty is 6.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Shall we assume it's normal difficulty?
Well, yeah. If it says, then it should be difficulty 6. That's
obviously this is
it doesn't say flux system is any difference. So
would it be lower as well because this is your haunt? Doesn't that usually lower the shroud?
But it's not based on the shroud.
Oh.
Well,
according
I'm
to
rolling
this.
7 dice. So if we're happy, I'm not going to spend any willpower on this, I don't think.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, I guess I'll try and mess with the inner circuitry of this computer by like laying my hand on it.
Sure. So what we'll describe this in order, I think now. So in order to pass through the locked door down to the shop below, you will have had to become incorporeal and pass through the door, in which case take a bashing point of corpus damage. And then once you reach this storeroom, so you're kind of presumably touching this computer system that's just stacked over to one side on a set of metal shelves. So how many successes did you get on your roll there for decay?
I got 2 10s and 2 7s, so 4 successes, I believe.
Really good. Don't forget to remove successes for ones if you were.
I did not get any ones, and apparently my shadow gains 2 temporary angst.
Yes. So John gained 2 temporary angst from that, and make sure you spend 2 pathos, please, Pierre. I think that computer, like, let's say it was running as well. It was maybe they were testing it out, maybe whatever. And this is only a few minutes after the store's shut, so I'm going to say there's actually a member of the store staff kind of like beavering away in the corner, just like maybe opening up a system and just tinkering with it. And add this other system that's kind of running over with a monitor. You touch it and there is an audible hiss and the sound of metal making contact with things it shouldn't be making contact with. A couple of sparks are even visible inside, and the monitor turns a kind of like magic eye collage of odd colors and artifacts, and the noise of the PC fans sort of slowly die down to nothing. The staff member kind of looks over and mutters a curse and moves over to see what's wrong. He does not seem to be able to do anything about the PC.
I sort of smile to myself and I kind of, like I take a moment to like look at my works and I'm satisfied. And then I suddenly like jerk myself up out of the awake and I'm like, I was doing something, and headed right back out the door.
Sure.
So that was engaging one of Ronan's dark passions.
Which is?
Salt the earth.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to roll the strength of that dark passion.
Would that also be in line with my passion of rejecting the intruder in my shop?
Yeah.
Outrage?
I think it would. I think it would do both of them. In which case, you can roll to see if you regain some pathos, right?
Yes. I am not entirely sure what the mechanism of that is.
It'll be on the cheat sheet under pathos.
Gaining pathos. There we go.
Yeah. So you roll your passion rating at difficulty 6, and every success gives you a point of pathos.
Okay. Difficulty 6. Rolling my passion rating.
Told you this one was more complicated than the others, folks.
Yep. I got nothing.
Okay. Well, never mind. Well, that's kind of appropriate, being as your shadow got some angst from it. Yeah. So either way, you say you snap back to kind of like, what am I doing? and leave the shop. Are you? Here's a choice for you. You can either wait 5 minutes for another staff member to leave via the front door, or you have to become incorporeal to pass through the front door again.
And that does a point of pathos,
Another
corpus
point
damage.
of corpus damage, yeah. Which recover 1 per hour, and you can spend pathos to regenerate them as well. But still,
I think cursing myself. I go. I I've dug myself into this hole, and so I go through the door.
Absolutely,
taking another point.
Absolutely, that sounds good. You become kind of translucent and slide between the molecules of that front door, and then make your way down the kind of busy shopping street, sort of melting your way between individuals and kind of presumably with very little awareness or looking around you, so focused you are on. You really need to go talk to Emily, because missing Feta is no small deal. Let's hop in with someone else, shall we? And again, we're going to randomize it, and it's going to be John, appropriately enough. So, John, would you be amenable to starting in a, I believe your haunt is in a bookshop. Is that correct? Yeah, and it's also one of your fetters. Yeah, let's start in that bookshop. Where do you typically kind of spend your time?
I think I'm most likely to be found probably. There's a small seating area under a lamp right next to the crime section. And it is possible to stand behind this seated section. It's like a couple of chairs and a table for drinks or whatever. And I spend most of my time standing behind the chair reading crime books over people's shoulders.
Okay, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Do you have any related passions to that you think would be fueled by reading over a crime novel over someone's shoulder? Out of interest.
Unless it's one of mine, which is fairly unlikely, I don't think so.
Well, how unlikely do we think that is? You said that your crime novels weren't particularly successful, right?
I think I only published 2, and they were under a pseudonym.
Okay, well then I'm going to roll a d20, and if it comes up 20, it's one of your crime novels. How about that? It is not one of your crime novels. So perhaps you are dwelling there kind of deep in the recesses of this bookstore, just kind of like glancing over this individual shoulder, and they're reading, maybe they read, what they're reading? They're reading a collection, a like republished collection of Raymond Chandler noir crime novels. So at least it's, it's something decent, maybe something you associated your writing with in some way. Yeah, unlike Ronan, I believe you bear no ill will to the bookstore, right? It's
No.
where you used to purchase books and spend time and so on and so forth. As you are stood there, and again, it's kind of later on, but maybe the bookstore opens a little later than the others do, as many bookstores do, because they struggle to sell things as much as IT stores. And back here in the recess of the crime area, it's quite dark back here. Like most of the light just comes from this lamp. You do see some like flickering of the light along this little aisle, which you're fairly accustomed to, because it basically means someone has come in. And the shadows reach all the way to the back of the store and flicker around the entrance to this. You can hear the bell ringing as someone walks in, and then you hear a woman's voice talking to the person behind the desk. And could you give me, please, a wits plus alertness roll? And we'll say it's actually difficulty 5. I'm going to knock the difficulty down a bit.
Difficulty 5. I only have 1 success.
Okay. It seems a familiar voice to you.
I read slightly faster than the person who's reading this book, so I'm gonna quickly pop to the front desk. And if it's nothing, I can go back and find my place. But
Sure.
It's worth checking out.
Absolutely. Now, you have written something on your character sheet here, and I've made a number of assumptions. So if I'm wrong, I guess kind of correct me, or if you like the assumptions I've made better than what you came up with, let's run with them. But either way, you move around to the central area of the bookstore and take a look over. Standing in front of the kind of the counter area, talking to a little kind of like taken aback young man, is your sister. She seems to be quite alarmed and is proffering a kind of photo in the direction of the man behind the counter.
With a sinking feeling, I want to try and get a look at the photo.
You walk over. Your sister looks quite I guess harassed and frantic. She's quite a self-aware, tidy woman, and you can see that like her buttons are done up wrong on her cardigan, and she also seems to have come out without her handbag, which is something she would always carry with her. Kind of, you're fairly sure she would grab it from a burning building. She is proffering a photo of a girl aged around 10 or so, and is saying, please, maybe she just came in. Her aunt used to bring her here.
Oh no.
The photo is of your niece.
Right. So I take a couple of minutes to like run through I keep tabs on my niece, partly because she's my niece and partly because she's one of my fetters, and I take a moment to run through if this were a plot, who are likely suspects,
Sure.
motivations, is it a kidnapping, is it and then I just sort of remember that I can find someone to just probably locate her.
Mm-hmm. Like your sister is quite kind of emotionally overloaded in this moment. Obviously, she's kind of explaining to the clerk how she's been to the police and they're looking, but she's just thinking of anywhere where she might have run off to. I assume that you are swiftly reaching the same conclusion as Ronan Kayak did about perhaps your best port of call.
Would be Emily perfect.
Okay. Unlike Ronan, there's no need to kind of pass through any solid objects. So I'm assuming, unless you have anything to kind of get on with, that you're going to flee the scene and make your way to the monitor's offices.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Well, then we will leave Abby Atkinson speedily making her dead way out of the bookstore. And we will now go to Tammy. Tammy, I believe your haunt is it like a training field, like a training ground?
So the tennis courts.
Tennis courts.
Which you kind of like learn to play.
Absolutely. So would you kind of tend to be out on the courts, or would you be kind of in the, I guess it has like a clubhouse type thing that you'd have? Where would you tend to be?
I think probably actually out like in the courts more than in the clubhouse. Although the clubhouse is also where there'd be like the awards shelf and things, and some of the little, the photos and stuff from, previous tournaments and what have you. So also occasionally through there, but I think more often than not, like actually out in the courts, like
kind of watching people play and stuff like that. Well, let's pick up with you there then. As I've said to the others, it's a bright day, although in the Shadowlands that brightness just kind of, as I say, turns the contrast up on everything. The shadows are deep and dark. The light is stark and blinding, and you can see in front of you kind of groups of young people, some of them, kids, some of them in their teens, sort of all playing against each other. The coaches moving around, shouting things out. It all seems oddly like, you can see it very clearly and precisely, but but it also is blurred and odd and muddy, almost like you're seeing it in slow motion and fast forward at the same time. This kind of blur of life and breath and vitality that you no longer really have access to. There is one particular individual, one teenager who seems very good, who the coaches are kind of like almost two or three of them are actually kind of gathering around and talking to her, giving her advice, as she's clearly been kind of fed individuals to beat, essentially, in order to perfect her skills against kind of different sequential opponents. How does that make Tammy feel?
Not good at all. Eyes are totally fixed on her, and yeah, definitely kind of keeping close eye, and wandering kind of over in that direction, getting closer.
Sure. You know that I won't go into like the specifics, dialogue or anything. It's very clear that these couple of coaches consider this girl to be really, really very good indeed. And as she kind of bounds off and engages in another set with a sort of an opponent grabbed from a nearby group of individuals, one of them leans to another and says, "Reminds me of a young Tammy."
Rage. So I think she spends, especially when she's out here, like Tammy spends a lot of her time toying with how much she wants to practice skin riding, and whether she, like, the person she most wants and hates the idea of trying this with is this person. I don't think we actually settled on a name, so I don't know if you had one in mind.
It wasn't my intention that this was your rival.
It's not her. Okay.
No, this is a girl who's only just arrived.
I
like
see.
It's the first time you've seen her here. You don't know if she's from Cincinnati or not, because people don't just talk about that kind of thing around.
Okay. Okay, maybe a little bit more willing to try it. Like, just there's like totally an intense like jealousy of the kind of the attention and like the physicality of it, and the sort of distance from that obviously Tammy has now as a wraith. So I think she'll be at the moment kind of weighing up how much she wants to try and joyride that situation.
Yeah, sure. Where do you? I was pausing because I knew a shadow might pop in here. Chris. Oh, you're on mute, I think.
These hard courts, they're very hard on the knees, aren't they? They're very hard on the knees. Accidents happen during practice. God, it's a tragedy, isn't it?
Incidentally, everyone, by the way, obviously, like what John and Chris have done is just kind of encouraging this bad behavior. But shadows do also have thorns, which are abilities they can use. But I don't think any of these have been used yet. But we'll see.
I think Tammy is quite torn on this. And I'm not sure exactly on how, like, on the mechanics of this. Like, she is fairly strong on Eidolon, to kind of resist
the part of you that resists your shadow's temptations. If it's just your shadow guide, which is what the player is called, if it's just your shadow guide verbally offering you temptation, you don't have to take it. It's entirely up to you how you think your character would react. I think that one of the reasons that Ronan took it was already an action he was going to do, and then his shadow just went, "Go on," and like Pierre just went, "I think I would in that circumstance." It looks to me like what Chris is doing there. He is offering you a couple of dice for your puppetry roll, should you wish to skin ride the girl, because shadows can do that.
Oh, that is tempting.
It's just this sensation as you look at it, just somehow deep inside that worming voice just kind of like doesn't even say anything, but you have the sensation that if you wanted to slip beneath that skin, it would be easy, so easy.
I actually think she's gonna try and shut out the shadow part for now, because she wants to skin ride and not have her smash her knees. She wants to feel the surge and the goodness of having that physicality.
Sure.
And
so you're going to give in to the urge to puppet this girl, but not to your shadow suggestion to hurt her. Chris, the shadow guide, are you still offering the dice for the skin riding?
Let me see the actual rules. What does it cost me to give dice? I don't think it.
Nothing.
It's yeah, but it's stuff. Cool stuff happens if there's botches.
Yeah, if Inga rolls a 1 with any of the shadow dice that you offer, and you can offer up to 5, then for every 1 you get a point of temporary angst. So it's always kind of worth it.
I tell you what, in the interest of you haven't done exactly what I've asked, so I will offer you 1 shadow dice.
1 shadow dice. So the way puppetry works, if I can find that here, what level of puppetry are you using here? Well, I think you just have to use 1 to start skin riding, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you spend 1 pathos and you roll strength plus puppetry plus an extra shadow die, and be aware which one that is, because that's the one that we need to know if you roll a 1 on.
Yeah.
And I think that's it, right? There's nothing for roll strength plus puppetry. It says with success. The difficulty is equal to the local shroud. So the shroud here, you know what? I actually think it's quite difficult. But it is your haunt, right?
Yeah.
What's your level of haunt?
I have got haunt level 3.
That's very good. So the shroud is lowered by the level of your haunt, and I would actually say this area has a shroud of 10 because it's a busy, bright day on a tennis court. But that reduces it to 7. So make your puppetry roll, and don't forget that extra evil die from your evil self.
So that is 2 successes, but a 1 on my shadow die.
With any kind of success, you can inhabit the host body for the rest of the scene. But as you slide underneath the girl's skin and kind of occupy the same space as her, you feel those alive muscles moving and tensing and releasing, and you take some of that joy in on yourself. And I'm going to interpret that extra point of angst, and you don't have to do anything based on this, but I guess it just does make you realize just how easy it would be to slip, to bend and joint the wrong way, anything like that. Don't feel you have to do anything based on that. Just maybe that voice was right. It would be easy to do that. He says that not knowing how many points in puppetry you have, but
she does have 2 points in puppetry.
So Twitch.
She can go as far as Twitch.
Yeah, you could try and make her trip if you wanted to. But
I think she will. I think she will, for as long as possible, try and just hold out and play for as long as possible, and just enjoy the kind of the thrill of that. But then, yeah, I think that probably will start to eat away at her a wee bit, and especially if there's more and more compliments and encouragement. I think as she kind of almost maybe as she leaves, she'll try and go for a twitch.
So at least a stumble, but maybe not not while she's playing, which would be the really dangerous part, right? Okay, absolutely. You experience that vicarious thrill for maybe 10 or 20 minutes or so as the girl plays very good tennis, very good, gnaws the little voice away inside you. And you, as it finishes, the coaches do deliver some effusive praise. And as the girl kind of starts walking up the steps up the clubhouse, that might be an ideal point for a foot to be misplaced. So why don't you spend 1 pathos, roll strength plus puppetry, and either way, Chris, you can take 1 temporary angst for this, just basically, if the host would resist the movement, it's just a point of angst to your shadow, which you can understand. You are bodily manipulating someone to do something bad. So go ahead and make that roll.
That is 4, assuming it's the difficulty 6, 4 successes and 1 1.
It'll be difficulty 7, I think.
That's still 4 successes.
Yeah.
Well, -1 for the botch.
You know what? The girl goes head first down and kind of, she hasn't horribly wounded herself or anything, but she cracks her nose and it splits open on one of the stairs. You feel that kind of like pain yourself, like rocketing through your skull briefly as she kind of scrambles to her feet. Blood and snot and some tears kind of running down her face. She's not kind of, crying she's crying at the embarrassment and the humiliation and the shock of it. She stumbles into the clubhouse, sort of wiping her face. One of the coaches behind her going, "Oh my God, well, I think your nose is broken. Well, I'll drive you to the hospital." As he ushers her into the clubhouse, can you give me a perception plus alertness roll, please?
Can I take my role now for engaging in the dark passion of feel as strong and powerful as I did in life?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And that's a difficulty 6 just on a dice, isn't it? Well, it's 1 dice because it's a level 1 passion. Yeah.
Yeah, if the Wraith is experiencing it themselves, then it's a difficulty 6, and if the Wraith is provoking it in others, then it's a difficulty 9, I think.
It is. It matters not. I failed.
Fair enough.
That's 2 7s on the perception.
Okay. So over on the wall, there are trophy cases, and there are photos and things like that, mementos of previous students here. There is a whole little section for Tammy. So photos from trophies. Her tennis racket with a little plaque, kind of like, a kind of RIP Tammy, died young, not too long ago, let's all, a nice little plaque. The tennis racket is missing.
Just instant turn around, gotta go find Emily. Yeah.
Are you kind of I presume you're like ending your puppetry, you're kind of emerging. Yeah, you feel yourself kind of like almost, I want to compare it kind of like, taking virtual reality goggles off, or like suddenly, when you've been focusing on something on a screen for so long, maybe a video game or something like that, and then you stop and pulling out is like entering reality again. You do that, drifting out of the back of the girl, still kind of sobbing softly and wiping blood off her face. Turn around and speedily make your way out of the clubhouse, off to North Side to find Emily Perfect. And that leaves us with only one Wraith. Chris. Brian, I believe, doesn't have a haunt as such, but quite frequently spends time in kind of data management offices and facilities in the city. And I believe we mentioned a kind of, maybe there's a floor of a small size skyscraper somewhere in the business district of Cincinnati where there's a load of, I believe you called it a data hall, which is like a precursor to like a server farm or whatever. And there is an office there that was allocated to Brian, and was the last place maybe that he was doing some work before he died in the car crash in Cincinnati. Whereabouts would you be in that office? Would you be roaming the kind of halls of the data hall?
Yeah, Brian would be kind of roving the halls, kind of observing the blinking lights, as we often do, and kind of not really doing any work, but in just kind of just describe my take on the scene. Brian was traveling through Cincinnati, so he was only staying for a little event, and this was kind of a company had given him basically a hot desk, even though it's not really a hot desk. And his little terminal there, and his little briefcase with all of his personal effects is in that office and hasn't been moved yet because Brian is very recently dead. And other than that, it's just he's been helping out, I suppose, for want of a better word, where he can.
Yeah,
wandering
kind of
the halls
using-
aimlessly. It being 5 p.m., there's probably no one really doing anything. There won't be any work until later.
What we're going to say is you're wandering these halls, and if anyone has been to a data hall or a server farm, they will know it's a long series of racks that you move along, like a long series of corridors. And as you're moving along these, there's not a lot of, I would say probably all the windows are blocked off to discourage the most heat as possible. The air conditioning is going full guns. Because this is an old school, these are old school servers and PCs. It's going to be very, very warm in there. And as you're kind of like moving between these, like every time you move between those halls of servers and PCs, there's like a flash of digital light that just washes over you, and then back into the darkness, back into the light, back into the darkness. Unlike, say, Ronan's place, very little dust here. It's taken care of extremely fastidiously. The air has like this warmth, but also this dryness and this almost kind of you feel like you're moving through warm silk because of the lack of dust and moisture in the air. You come to a stop at the end of a row, and you can see kind of halfway down that there's a guy there who seems to be kind of like finishing up for the day, maybe kind of like he's at his terminal, he's kind of like tapping away, and at the same time kind of like sort of with one hand trying to like pack his bag in place. He's brought his dog to the data hall for the day, which you may or may not approve of. You're on mute, by the way. And the dog is kind of like sat by the desk, and as you walk across the end of it and kind of stop to look at the man, who is dressed in very kind of 90s data nerd, he's wearing cargo shorts and maybe a butthole surfers t-shirt, a young guy with like kind of badly got long hair, and the ends of it are kind of badly dyed pink. The dog, which is maybe, let's say, a Labrador, kind of tilts its head up and kind of looks sort of straight at you and just kind of makes a noise.
Dog. I'm going to go toward the couple, just because I want to judge this unkempt person. Everyone attending a professional institution should be in a suit and tie. All this newfangled dress down stuff is degrading the glory of our craft. And I also want to keep an eye on him and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes.
Sure. You can see that he's, as I say, he's kind of tapping away with one hand while packing his bag with the other. You know what? He doesn't seem to be making any visible mistakes, but he's certainly being a bit slapdash. Pierre.
But that dog is surely a hazard to the air quality, maintained so well by previous workers here. He's
Loose
threatening
hair.
he's threatening the integrity of the whole business. Don't you think?
The dog's an annoyance. Typing one-handed 5 minutes before the end of shift, however, is unforgivable.
Back in your day, they used to work hard.
Yes, quite. I worked my way around behind the guy and just keeping a very close eye and making sure he's not at risk of making any kind of mistakes.
I'm going to roll a random die for this guy. Higher is better. And let's see how he is actually performing, shall we? He literally just botched his code and he hasn't noticed.
Oof, okay, so I'm going to use one of my Arcanoi, or not Arcanoi, one of my skills. I'm going to fix his problem using... So I can basically press a button here using Outrage 1, and I'm going to very, very carefully wait until an opportune moment and put a comment in front of the line of code that he's just screwed up, so at least everything will fail, and it may draw his attention to it, and maybe it'll spook him out a bit as well.
Sure, absolutely. So is this is Wraith Grasp, is it?
No, this is Outrage 1. I think it's Wraith Grasp, but I basically have it listed here as press a button. I bought it specifically for this purpose.
Yeah. So yeah, push or lift inanimate objects in the Skinlands. Only simple straight line motion is possible. So I'm going to assume, let's look in outrage systems. Yeah, the local shroud rating is the difficulty. Yeah, I think that might be a slightly problematic for you in that the shroud here. This is the weird thing. It's dark and it's weird, and like that, all the windows are covered over. So even though it's full of technology, I think it's actually a little bit spooky. Not hugely so. I'm gonna say it's. Well, here we have an empty shopping center parking lot late at night is 7, right? And I think that's quite comparable, actually.
That does.
These places are a little bit creepy. He's probably one of the last people here. It's dark. So let's call it a 7. Let's call it a 7. And that roll is you spend 1 pathos and you roll strength plus outrage.
Ooh. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to roll it. I'm not going to spend any willpower.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. 2 successes.
2 successes. Okay. That means you have affected the real world. But I would like an additional thing here, because I think this is pushing the boundaries of this Arcanoi. I think you also need to roll to get your timing right to fix the code.
I was going to say.
So let's have a roll from you for, let's say it's your choice of dexterity or wits plus computer.
I'll take wits. 3.
And I'll just normal difficulty. Let's call it a normal difficulty of 6.
There's a lot of dice going on here.
I'll offer you a couple of extra if you like.
Man, I just rolled 7 dice. I don't need your stupid ghost help. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 successes.
Yeah. So the guy's like tapping away with one hand, like packing with the other, and he glances back at his screen. And all of a sudden, you would know more than I would, Chris, like exactly how. Have you put like parentheses in the right place or something like that?
I've just at the beginning of the line, I've put an asterisk, or I put a hash character, and that has kind of disabled the whole line of code from executing.
Absolutely. And as you do that, and it's a key that his hand was nowhere near, and he kind of taps away and kind of does a double take at it. And just pauses a second and looks around. I'm not going to push all the fog in there because I think it's like, oh, that's weird, rather than like a ghost. You know what I mean? Like a ghost coder. I don't think is an immediate response he'd hit, but he kind of like pauses and looks, and then looks at his screen and just goes, "Oh man, no more E before a work day." Okay. And like just kind of shuts everything down, kind of like gets his dog, who kind of like he's kind of like, come on. And the dog just kind of like leans a bit towards your hand and like seems a bit confused that it can't smell you. And he kind of looks around a bit, again a little bit freaked out, and just kind of tugs the leash, not unkindly, of his dog, and they make their way out. Your desk and your terminal where you hot desked here is just around the corner. Any chance you wanna swing by there? Not that.
Yep. I also want to cash in the fact that I've absolutely engaged in my paternalistic passion to protect the system from young idiots.
Absolutely. Give yourself a passion roll for that, then, please.
So that's the 2 dice on the passion.
I'm not sure if this one counts as a dark passion, because I think you may have avoided it. But I was thinking to causing the failure of others, although obviously
it helped him.
Yeah,
I specifically prevented the failure of others.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is this normal difficulty? Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Let me have a look. Can roll one. Yes, it's difficulty 6 if you experience the passion. So
It does not matter. I have failed. I actually botched, but I don't think there's botch mechanics.
No, I don't think there's a botch. It would be fun if there was, wouldn't it? But no, I don't think there's a result for botching on those. Okay, are you kind of making your way round to where your old terminal is?
As I'm in the area, out of maybe nostalgia for the days when I was not drug-addled and much better dressed young programmer, I will go round to my desk and my old desk and check on my little briefcase that's probably still sat there.
Your briefcase is indeed there. The terminal is kind of still obviously off. There is like a little nameplate, like a temporary nameplate that was put on there. And you notice they finally seem to have gotten around to, they've kind of pulled out your tag and flipped it and put it in. So it's just kind of blank. And there's a little note on the desk of kind of like, just for now, please, no one sit here. We have to sort out Brian's effects. But can you give me a perception plus alertness roll, please? I wonder what this could be.
Looks like
I got a 7, so that's 1 success.
I believe, Pierre, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just saying, looks like they're getting rid of our stuff.
Yeah, that's upsetting. Yes, so that's 1 success.
Okay, next to your briefcase, in between the briefcase and the monitor or the screen, really, other than the big, bulky old screen, was a little wooden box full of punch cards. It's gone.
Oh, suppose they sorted out those effects first. Vultures. Suppose I will begin to affect a search and maybe cast my mind back to earlier on in the day and kind of remember, was anyone poking around in that area?
You definitely don't remember anyone. In fact, you're fairly sure that you didn't see anyone hovering in this row today at all. Your terminal is the only one in there. There's no reason for anyone to go there unless something goes wrong. And nothing went wrong. You made sure of that.
Guess I'm going to kind of expand my search pattern then, especially kind of focusing on kind of a 50-50 split between the non-technical overhead that refer to themselves as managers and the young whippersnappers who have no right to come into an office without a certain tie because they were probably just pranking the ghost of an old man.
Sure. You are welcome to try that, but, it's gone 5 o'clock. Everyone is leaving the building. So if you need to locate where your fetter has got to, it might be time to turn to more restless solutions.
Yeah, I think in the absence of anything better to do, I'm going to go and start basically following. I might follow the man with the dog because he was the last person there, and I don't have to think rationally. I'm a ghost.
Sure. Yeah. Are you sure you wouldn't like to go to the person who knows how to find fetters that you know of?
Well, you see, I don't think I know of them all that well.
Yeah,
I will.
You definitely do. That's why I put them in the story.
I think that I will definitely leave the building, and maybe after probably 30-40 minutes of trying to track down this guy in whatever car he had, it will occur to me that
if
maybe...
you wait for 30 or 40 minutes, other stuff will... Remember how tight the schedule in this is, Chris. That's all. I'm trying to get the party together. Accept the mission in the tavern.
5 minutes then, and then I will... outside on the street, we'll kind of go, okay, look, I'm not...
Look,
I will need
you can
help.
if you want. It's just you will spend the rest of the story away from the other characters. Which might be fine for you, but
yes, fine for Brian. Anyway, yeah. So I'll eventually kind of.
So many colleagues, so few friends.
Well, you know what? I will say actually that this building is very close to Emily Perfect's office, so maybe Brian does spend a bit of extra time kind of like wandering around. You follow the young whippersnapper for a while, but he clearly isn't carrying it. You see him rummage through his bag and it's just full of like computing magazines and something about video games. Maybe a Game Boy. So clearly he hasn't got it. So all your other avenues are exhausted. How does that sound?
Yep, that's absolutely fine by me.
Okay. Then, with a group of railroaded individuals, let's pick up outside or down the street from Emily Perfect's office, where all of you will be heading. And you know what? Let's see what directions you're all coming in from. So, can everyone please give me a D10 roll? And if you roll 1 to 5, hold your hand up.
10.
Okay. In that case, I guess all 4 of you turn up at one end of the street. So you all approach the street that Emily Perfect's offices are in. She makes her home in an old antique store in Northside, which is marked closed but still full of antiquities of various kinds. As you approach that that street, let's say you're all approximately the same time, but let's give a quick roll to see the 2 who arrive at roughly the same time together. Well, that's a nice coincidence. Abby, as you're rushing towards Emily Perfect's offices, you see Tammy seemingly in a hurry coming from a side street towards the same direction.
I'll give Tammy a bit of a wave and then hurry on to the office. And then when it becomes obvious that we're heading in the same direction, I think I will slow down and catch up with her.
Tammy will not really respond to the slowing down and matching the pace. She'll carry on. I might kind of like half wave back, but still quite focused about getting there as soon as possible. Doesn't even occur to her that you might be also heading the same way for similar reasons.
Tammy.
Sorry, I'm in a real hurry right now.
Yeah, so am I. My niece went missing.
What?
My niece.
Well, my bracket's gone missing. This is important too, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Brian, you are making your way down the street towards Emily Perfect's office. The quick are kind of all around you. It's still kind of like rush hour going home. Among the blur and the furore of the living moving past you, you can see 2 other restless on the other side of the street. They seem to be conversing in somewhat strident tones about things going missing.
And they're kind of outside or very near to the office, aren't they?
They are near to the office. It's just down the street from here.
I will cross over and salutations to the restless dead, or whatever we're supposed to say now. I see you're missing things as well.
Yes. You too, then?
Yes, just an old keepsake.
I mean, this is why most people come to visit Emily, right?
Yeah, but they don't normally form a queue outside of a door.
Ronan, you walk around the corner and see these 3 wraiths who you have met them all. You haven't had much interaction with them, but you know of them all. You certainly didn't know they were affiliated with each other because they seem to be here gathered as a group.
Hello, are you here for Ms.
Yeah,
Perfect?
we're all here. Missing
Yes, we're
stuff.
queuing.
Have any of you tried knocking?
We hadn't gotten that far.
A few doors down is Emily Perfect's office. As I say, an antique store. Outside it, an expensive soul steel sign hangs, proclaiming her name and with the image of a magnifying glass. As the 4 of you watch, a pair of other restless leave the front of her offices, looking worried and somewhat angry.
Are they close?
It's relatively close to you, but they're heading in the opposite direction, kind of down the street away from you.
Okay. I guess I'll sort of yell out, "Hello, hey! Do you by any are you by any chance missing something?"
One of them kind of turns to look back at you, a like face of clarity and the blur of the motion of the quick, and then a car kind of like rolls past quickly, and you lose sight of them.
Well, I'm beginning to feel a little uneasy about this whole situation. I suggest we go in together, perhaps to have bargaining power.
Sure, whatever. Let's get moving.
Okay, sounds like the four of you are approaching the front of her offices. You can see inside kind of the antique packed frontage of the store. There is no sign of Emily Perfect. The other Restless, they obviously didn't open the door. They kind of moved themselves through it. Are we doing the same thing? Just entering? You can't think of a way other than calling out that you might alert her to your presence. Unless one of you wants to like outrage knock on the door or something.
Yeah. Will do. Sure.
Sorry, was that a will do to just ghosting through the door, or we outrage?
Actually, yeah, I think that's way more direct than knocking. I think, yeah, straight through the door.
Okay. Is Tammy being followed by the others?
Yeah.
Okay. You pass yourself through the physical barrier of the door. Everyone can take 1 bashing damage to their corpus, please. You find yourself in the interior of the antique store. Everything, again, covered in dust. Odd shafts of light bending themselves around the weird shapes of small statues and urns and kind of pottery and dishes that are arrayed on the shelving in front of the doorway. A voice kind of further inside in a back room somewhere calls out saying, "No one knocks anymore."
Told you we should have knocked.
Emily Perfect walks out of the back room. She is a shortish, somewhat nondescript woman with brown hair and a sort of turquoise-ish form-fitting dress with a kind of an odd octopus design across it. She also has kind of like blackened marks like tendrils running across well, not her skin, but what at least appears to be skin in the Shadowlands. One thing you notice about her now and every previous time you've interacted, she never, ever blinks. Well, this is quite an unusual gathering.
Miss Perfect, I don't suppose you've had an unusually busy day today, have you?
It's funny you should say that, Miss Atkinson. I have.
We're all missing our, I assume, fetters.
One would assume malicious intent.
People come to me for all kinds of reasons. But, yes, maybe there's been a lot of it about.
Well, I personally have reason to believe that a wraith or another incorporeal being took mine. No mortal has touched my fetter. That much I'm sure.
Interesting, I'm sure. But before we get into the details of this thing, what is being offered? I think you all already owe me favors. Are you willing to up that ante, or are there other things that can be proffered? This isn't a charity after all.
Matt, would we, from what we do know of, or any of us know of our relationship with Emily from previously, would we have much of an inkling of the kind of things that she does typically want in return, or some of her particular goals that we could see if any of our skills might help serve that we could offer?
You definitely don't know her close enough to know of any kind of like specific things you could help her with, but certainly like a lot of Wraith Society operates on a system of very figurative barter, in that it's just like kind of like, you owe me this much favor, you owe me this, I've done these things for you, you will owe me in return. Similarly, you could offer more physical items like relics and artifacts and like a bolus, the Wraith currency and things like that, but I very much doubt any of you have any of that. So it's a more figurative system, and certainly if you're close enough to someone, you could say, well, I'll help you with this, or I'll help you find this, or we'll do this. You definitely don't know Emily well enough for that kind of thing.
Well,
yeah, I mean, hard to pay off a favor if we don't have the things that. Yes, I need my racket back.
I can only offer you. Sorry, I can only offer you what I have, which is my service. I can perhaps assist you in your tasks via sculpting you in any form you please.
Well, that might be a tempting offer. What about the rest of you?
I don't know what I can offer specifically, Miss Perfect, but my niece is missing. I don't know if her life is in danger, and I would be prepared to do whatever is needed to get her back.
Oh. Well, that just sounds like a big old favor. Maybe that for the athletic prodigy as well. And what about you, Silver Fox?
Yeah. I'm sure I'm owed a favor of my own from some of my friends. I will cut you in on some of the outcomes from services owed to them, I suppose.
All right, so anonymous large favors from the three of you, and a little bit of fleshcraft from the one in the killer suit.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, then. All four of you line up.
I line up.
Tammy tries to position herself in whatever looks like the front of the line, if possible.
Emily Perfect takes a step forward and kind of, Tammy, you've put yourself to the front, so you're the first one she walks to. She kind of takes a couple of steps towards you and then stops very suddenly and just looks first into your eyes and then down your face, along your arm, down your side, generally all over you. She's looking for something. And while she does so, she goes, no, 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 no. No. Wait. There you are. The smallest of threads. Yes. Yes. She steps to the next one, Brian, and does the same thing. Where? Oh, I see. Hiding away. She does the same to Abby, and then Ronan, and then steps away. Well, perhaps I should have treated you as a bulk job. They're all in the same place.
Oh, well, that it's
Where?
without saying that it's intentional, then, isn't it? Theft.
Yeah, but where?
Such impatience. The old public library. And I'd be careful there if I was you. There are bad spirits in that building. Everyone knows that. Old, deep horrors. But I'm sure you'll be fine.
Ma'am, that was not
Suppose.
reassuring.
I suppose they have us to ransom. Then we better go.
Miss, is there any more convenient way out of your establishment, or must everyone go through the door?
You're not afraid of a little rough and tumble, are you?
You're not flirting with me, are you? But yes.
I'm afraid you'll just have to take the door, same as everyone else.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that. Well, I appreciate your time.
So, I'm assuming we're all leaving the Monitor's establishment? Unless there's any other questions we want to ask of Emily?
Another point of corpus, I assume.
Another point of corpus? But I think at this point about an hour has passed. So everyone can also heal 1 point of corpus.
I think just on the way out, I'll kind of turn and go, this happened before. A load of keepsakes going missing at the same time.
No, not before today.
Frustrating. Thank you for your assistance.
Okay. As I say, an hour has passed. You feel the plasm forming your body, or what passes for it, knitting itself up and recovering a bit of fortitude. I'm assuming the four of you are going to make your way towards the public library together. It's over on kind of the other side of the city center of Cincinnati. So you've got a little way to travel.
Is there any fast way of traveling in the Skinlands, or
I assume you mean Shadowlands rather than
Shadowlands?
Skinlands?
Sorry, yes.
There are ways if you have to certainly speed your travel. If you have an arcane called Argos, which one of you does do, and it's not without its dangers, but it could certainly be employed. And the one of you with Argos did hold her hand up just there. So, is that what we're thinking of, Inga?
Look, I want to get there quickly. If anybody wants to join me, take my hand.
I would appreciate that very much.
So, yes, I believe you have Argos 1, which gives you Weather Eye, which lets you... It doesn't specifically... Other forms of Argos let you like grow wings and kind of move, essentially teleport. Argos just lets you travel through the Shadowlands via shortcuts that may or may not be bits of the Shadowlands abutting other bits of the Shadowlands that aren't technically next to each other in a weird, non-Euclidean kind of way. I would say before there was actually two powers at this level, at the level you're using, called Weather Eye. One is being aware of current weather conditions in the Tempest, and before you actually start kind of flickering through the Shadowlands to increase your speed, it might not be a bad idea to check those weather conditions. The Tempest is the layer of the Shadowlands that sits below the one you're in, or the layer of the Underworld, rather, that sits below the one you're in, a roiling, constant storm of nothingness meeting somethingness. Do you want to do that before you start doing it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Perception plus Argos, right?
It is. Perception plus Argos, difficulty 6.
2 successes.
Okay. The Tempest is roiling. with a fury you've rarely seen. It doesn't mean you can't try and speed up your travel to the library, but it definitely means that there are some dangers to doing so. Yeah, Chris. Proffering some dice there. Some dice, presumably for that Tempest shortcut roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tammy wants them.
We have to work together in hard times, you know.
Okay.
Yep. How many dice were you offering there?
What's my limit? I think I'm only going to offer 2
5.
because I have 2 in my hand, but my limit is 5. I'm just going to offer 2 because I think there's a better probability to botch with a lower number of dice, and the botches serve me.
Okay, as for the others, while Inga makes this roll, by the way, which is spending 1 pathos and rolling perception plus Argos at difficulty 6, with those extra 2 dice from Chris. Abby, Ronan, Brian, like Tammy has just requested that you take her hands. Are you just doing so though, with no particular explanation?
Yeah.
I'm very, very awkwardly kind of whoever's arm I get are kind of awkwardly grabbing around their wrist, very uncomfortable with the whole situation.
What are we about to do?
If you want to move faster through the Tempest, might be able to help. Matt, it does. I think the number of additional people increases the difficulty.
Oh, yes, they do. The number of people without Argos increases by 1. So that's actually difficulty 9 for each of them.
Oh, maybe it's time I upped the dice wager there.
I think Tammy would take it if there was more offered, yeah.
I think I'll go ahead and offer the full 5 in this situation because...
What
are friends for? What are friends for?
Please don't drop me in the middle of a tempest.
What are existential personal demons for, if not for offering more dice? Yeah,
she's gonna take these dice. Okay, so that's 5 extra. That's good. Okay, right. Everyone's on board, right?
We're going into, but it's safe, right? In the Tempest.
I mean, you're kind of you're traveling the edges of the Tempest, certainly, by stepping into the places between spaces. But you're not diving into the Tempest. That would be quite another undertaking. But you're certainly going to be on the fringes of it.
Yeah, people do these sorts of trips, right?
I'm just going to put my hand on Ronan's back and go, look, the lady is in a bit of a rush and she needs our assistance, or maybe she will need our assistance. Now is not the time for discussion. Now is the time for a little bit of haste.
Okay, point made.
Inga, how'd that roll go?
difficulty 9, wasn't it, in the end? 1, 2, 3 successes, no botches.
So no 1s on the entire thing.
No 1s on the entire thing.
Oh, bad luck, Chris the Shadow.
I got a 2 on one of my shadow die.
There we go. So 3 successes, you said. Well, that halves your travel time. So with that in mind, I think we will. It's definitely a weird one for how I've got it constructed in terms of time, but I will keep this in mind. So the way that you move forwards, Tammy, I assume you're probably not all running at full pelt because you probably wouldn't be able to maintain that pace, but you're kind of dashing through the streets of Cincinnati, moving between the quick where you need to because there's still a lot of them around, crossing streets, ducking behind alleyways. Occasionally, Tammy, you feel the pull of the Tempest to one side of you or another, and you dive through a doorway or duck through an archway at the side and find yourself maybe not quite on the street you were expecting, but a different street a couple ahead. Just the snickleways and byways of the Tempest threaded through the city of Cincinnati and the Skinlands feel like they're yours to command. And you are making your way with some haste across the city centre. So the first time that something happens on this journey is you find yourselves outside an archaic-looking church, set out away from nearby houses, with like an open, what was maybe once a bell tower, but now the top of it is opened as if all the stones fell away. There are low walls of stone rubble, sort of protecting the church essentially around the edges, although not very highly. The whole thing looks weirdly transplanted from, maybe from Europe. It doesn't look like a very American building. And as you're making your way around this, you all become aware. Well, in fact, let's see how aware you all become. Let's give me, please, a perception plus awareness roll.
Are we in the Tempest at the moment?
You are not in the Tempest, no.
Gotcha.
What Tammy is doing is moving, kind of like
on the
using
edge.
shortcuts that take you near the Tempest, but not into it.
Good.
2 successes.
2 successes.
It was standard difficulty, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was standard difficulty. So far it's 2s all round. How'd you do, Pierre?
2 successes, yeah.
2s all round. There we go. You all become aware at exactly the same time of some noises which maybe would have blended into the background of the kind of muffled sound of the quick around you. But they seem sharp and dissonant and unpleasant. And then they resolve themselves into a marching sound, the marching of many armored feet. There are only one group of individuals who travel through the necropolis of Cincinnati as a group with armored feet, and that is one of the hierarchy patrols out from the central citadel. Now, none of you are members of the hierarchy. None of you have particularly done anything to piss them off either, but at least 3 of you definitely have at least had ties or interactions with individuals who the hierarchy are not terribly fond of. You have no idea if they might know of those ties and interactions, but if there's one thing your existence so far among the Restless has taught you, it's that wraiths who are targeted by the hierarchy and their patrols outside the citadel have a tendency to vanish. The patrol sounds like it's marching around the side of the church in your general direction.
Is there anywhere obvious to hide?
There are the low rubble walls. You could lurk behind those. They're not huge, but if you crouched or lay down, you may be unseen. You could try and lurk on the opposite side of the church, perhaps, or maybe even enter the church.
Keep them between us.
But otherwise, it's a relative, like you're in like a square, basically, with this church at the center of it and the roads aside. You could even maybe try and find yourself just lost among the quick. There are a lot of them walking around on the streets, but that might be risky.
Yeah. I think I'll try and duck into the church and see if there's any, see if I can wait out them.
Sure. How about the other 3 of you?
Yeah, same. I'll follow.
Brian, Abby?
I'm more tempted to kind of just kind of keep them at the other side of the church. Brian, not a big fan of such buildings.
Okay.
I think I'm going to try and blend in, like lose myself in the quick.
Okay. Well then, Ronan and Tammy, why don't you give me a well, I say Ronan and Tammy and Brian, actually. Why don't you all give me either a dexterity or wits plus an athletics roll to see how quickly you can scramble to that, to one of these hiding places without... So we've got a 2 from Ronan, a 1 from Brian. I imagine Tammy is going to nail this roll with significant athletics.
Only 3 with 4 and then a botch, so 3 total.
Sure. Abby, for your part, why don't you give me a wits plus? What would we suggest? Would we suggest anything? A wits plus? I'd say either streetwise, or you know what, empathy.
Ooh, oh, they're the same. That's fine.
Don't forget, folks, by the way, just to remind you, if you ever want to spend willpower to get a guaranteed success on a roll, you have to declare it before the roll.
Just for the sake of flavor, I'm going for the streetwise.
Seems appropriate.
Okay, that takes out 1. So standard difficulty, 1 success.
Okay. Well then, Abby, you kind of like glance around you and notice that there is a few people kind of like lurking in the shade of a nearby awning outside a cafe, and you sort of duck in, and among them, kind of, you know, any wraith giving a serious look at the air would immediately notice that you're definitely one of the restless and not one of the quick. But you have to hope that this cluster of individuals helps. Tammy, Ronan, you find yourself ducking inside that church fairly adeptly inside. It is still in use, and you don't have to like pass through the door. Like the doors are open. It is still in use, but very run down. You can see at the end there is a priest kind of like dodderingly making his way around the front and like tucking the cloths and the throws in order to make it a little more neat. Presumably for his incoming flock, though there's no sign of them. The entire interior is mostly taken up with very bare, completely inornate benches that just make their way anonymously from the beginning to the end. But you do manage to find your way in there. But before we talk about how Brian does, I believe Inga has some shadow play for us.
Just a quick one. Stupid mistake. Slipping in among the quick. Should have gone and hidden with the others. Always follow the wrong path.
Shut up.
Is there any thorns that you... No, just a bit of taunting. Just a bit of taunting. Love it. Brian, I'd say you're maybe the least successful because you rolled 1 success, but you still manage. You kind of like make your way. You're not a particularly fast individual, I think, and you kind of make your way around the corner of the church, and you do it just as you see individuals wearing mismatched but fairly formidable looking soul steel armor, some of it like fairly patched, very few of it in large full suits, march round the edge of the church and sort of stop and halt their patrol just as it rounds on the end, and that these individuals are kind of like looking around slowly, readying themselves. A couple of them, most of them, are armed with various soul steel weapons. Some have swords, a couple have long wicked looking spears, but at least one of them has some kind of like relic assault rifle that he is just kind of like having a look through and sort of like making sure the magazine is in place properly. You also hear another noise, and the individuals in the church hear this as well. The church kind of like isn't a complete, square. There's the bell tower in the way there, and the doors of that are just beyond the bell tower, so you can't actually see the doors or the little area further on from where you are. But what you can hear is one pair of iron-shod feet still walking slowly, very slowly and precisely, and you hear a rattle and a slight screech as if something is being dragged behind the individual walking. Ronan and Tammy, you can hear these footsteps very clearly because they are approaching the doors to the church. Are you going to find yourself a place to specifically hide within the church?
Oh yeah.
Is there an area behind the altar, perhaps?
Yeah, you could certainly try and make your way round back there past the priest. And it's quite, it's a high table. It's, yeah.
Are there any, I forget what they're called in churches, some like the little side rooms that kind of go off from the main?
A nave?
Yeah, is there something like that could sort of just slip behind?
It's a long time since my church architecture course, which I'm not making up. But I'd say no. I'd say this central room is very simple, and there's a little room set aside that seems to be like the room with the stairs that lead up to the bell tower, but that's right next to the door. And there are some rooms at the back of the church that presumably maybe lead to where the priest lives.
Mm-hmm.
but there's no side rooms easily obtainable other than them, and they both have closed doors. So there's that to factor in as well, I suppose.
Presumably there are a bunch of pews and stuff along the way.
There are a lot of those kind of unornate, very basic wooden pews. You could definitely dive amongst them.
Yeah, I think maybe just to dive amongst those and try and like maybe somewhere about halfway up and just underneath one of the pews is sort of tucked away.
Sure. Why don't both of you then give me a wits plus stealth roll? Again, just standard difficulty.
One success. Oh, wait, no. I got a 1, so that's 0 success.
0 success.
2 successes.
2 from Tammy. Okay. So both of you kind of like dive. Tammy dives among the pews. Ronan, you kind of sprint and try and slide behind the altar. But maybe just you're worried a little too late. Those footsteps and the shrieking kind of like odd rattling noise comes to the door fully. And I think it's only fair. Would either of you like to take a peek and see who has arrived at the door to the church? I will offer you a roll for it. But it'll be quite an easy one. But hey, you could botch it. It's up to you.
I mean, you offer me a risk, Matt. Of course I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. Well, it'll be another wits plus stealth roll. And it's going to be difficulty 4, though. I think it'll be difficulty 4 to just peek. Oh, 2 dice being offered to Inga by Chris the Shadow.
Not this time.
Okay. Well, I got 3 successes.
Friends.
So I peek past the altar.
Sorry, what was the difficulty this time?
It's 4.
5 successes then.
Oh, okay. So this is what you both see. A fairly hulking figure arrives at the church door. The light passes through this individual. Wraiths do not cast shadows here in the Shadowlands, and yet pallor seems to fall over the interior of the church. It feels all of a sudden irrationally colder. It is an individual in ornate and thick-looking soul steel armor with what seems to be almost like a grate across the front, to the point where it doesn't seem to actually have any point where an individual could look out. Across his back and up over his head is a lion skin. A lion skin that looks only like not decayed, but definitely tattered with age. The fangs and kind of the eyes like drawn over the front like an old kind of like Roman legionary, with the lion's head almost, because you can't see the individual's face, it almost seems like it's a lion standing in armor there. He takes another step forward and you see that at his back, attached to that lion pelt, are a number of manacled chains dangling and screeching and rattling along the flagstones behind him. He takes 1 step and then 2 steps into the church, and you can hear from behind that grated helm, just at first gently and then a more harsh, sibilant noise of can all of you please, well, I think Brian can't see from where he's standing, but Abby, I think, has seen this individual walking over into the church. So Abby, Ronan, and Tammy, can you all give me intelligence plus politics, weirdly, rolls, please? Difficulty, let's say it's a difficulty 7. Two successes from Abby. Okay, none from inside the church. Abby, you have definitely heard tell of an individual who leads many of the hierarchy patrols here in the necropolis of Cincinnati, a marshal of the hierarchy known only as Prime. He is well known for his mercilessness, his cruelty, and his propensity to drag the guilty and the imagined guilty behind him on manacled chains to the walls of the citadel, where their fate is unknown, but presumably either leads to thraldom or the dreaded end of having your corpus forged across the soul fires to turn you into coinage, furniture, stone for building, or if you're lucky, a weapon. At least then your name might be remembered. Prime seems to have the scent of someone inside the church.
Oh, God. I'm assuming that given my hiding spot, I don't really have anywhere I can go without being seen by this guy.
Correct.
Okay. Actually, can I use my Stygian wallflies to get a better look at the situation and where he's going and try and track him? So these are two little flies who I've named Decima and Mortar, who I can look through the eyes of.
Sure. Are you going to kind of release them then, and they can flitter around the church, so you can get a better look at?
They can be spotted if he's particularly perceptive.
Okay.
So yeah, I just want to see how he's moving. So do I get any?
Yeah, sure. You he's taking further steps inside the church. He kind of is turning round, and his you can't see his eyes, but his helm definitely orients it towards the altar at the back. He takes one step forward, then another, and then a voice calls from the doorway of the church. Sir. The figure in armor kind of creaks his way round the chain, the manacled end of the chains kind of skittering along the floor slightly. And I know, sir, but the yellow dog, we've had word over to the north, sir. Prime takes a step away from the altar, and then another and another. He pauses at the door, and there is a creaking screech of metal on metal as he turns that helm to look back towards the altar, and then away. He steps out, and Brian and Abby, you see the patrol gather up their weapons and start marching onwards away from the church.
Well, that was a close one.
He must have been real close to you.
Yeah, I saw him. He was right on top of me. We should get out of here. Coming into the church was not a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for leading you here.
I didn't do anything I didn't want to do.
The two of you pad with some swiftness out of the church, past the doddering priest, completely blissfully unaware of anything that just occurred within the Shadowlands in the shelter of his building, and out to rejoin the others, presumably.
My flies kind of fly into the small pocket.
You see Ronan and Tammy emerge from the church, no worse for wear.
I'm a little bit shaken.
I will wait until the patrols have definitely moved on before I leave my cover.
Yeah, you probably have to wait a couple of
Likewise.
minutes for the sound of their marching to completely retreat, but then you definitely do so.
Likewise, probably from the other side of the church, maybe I'll be coming around doing a full loop.
I think I would know the yellow dog.
You do know
possibly.
Yellow Dog. Yellow Dog is the name of a local renegade leader.
Yeah.
The Renegades being a definitely disparate group of individuals, gangs, and organizations that resist the hierarchy.
Yeah.
You have met the Yellow Dog. It was an experience. He's quite approachable, but a bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Yeah, we survived.
Yeah, I don't know if it's connected at all to anything we're doing, but they're off to find Yellow Dog. They've got some kind of lead on him. I don't know. You've met him, right, Ronan?
Yeah, once or twice. I don't know. We seem to be saved by some incredible coincidence. I sometimes wonder if
There's some omnipotent being determining the course of our lives.
Whether that's more scary than there not being that. Well, we should.
If interested, by the way, for when I mention them, the others of you probably don't know this, but Ronan does because he has definitely had interactions with the local renegades on more than one occasion. The Yellow Dog runs a gang of renegades, one of them all long-standing ones in the Cincinnati area called the Kennel Club.
Yeah, they're good people if you get past the. Well, okay, they're people. We should keep moving.
Their violence is perhaps more well directed towards the hierarchy. Asterisk, unless you're a member of the hierarchy. Sure. Are we carrying on making our way towards the library? Okay.
Yep. Do we hold your hand again, Tammy?
Matt, do you know roughly how close we are?
You're about halfway. I won't make you roll again. I'm happy for it to be the same roll that kind of speeds you up, as it were.
Yeah, if we're still only halfway, let's.
Sure.
Yeah, if anyone wants a ride.
So, as you are moving through the streets of Cincinnati, again, you're making good time. And now you emerge out onto sort of a small patch of wasteland, like where some buildings have been knocked down between other kind of taller, like some brownstones and apartment blocks and stuff like that. And you've made your way through the wire fencing in this kind of like rubble-strewn area of detritus and waste. Not the same one as has been featured previously in this in the Chronicles, like a much smaller one. It's just a gap between two big buildings, basically. And as you start making your way through there, Tammy, you kind of eye an alleyway on the other side of the street as perhaps something that might slip you through to closer to the library, when all of you feel something very sudden. A tight, dense feeling rolls over you as a group. You probably, I would imagine, you stop moving. You definitely all maybe like pull your hands back in almost a reflexive thing to kind of clutch at your heads where the feeling is concentrated. The entire air around you seems to vibrate with a sensation of uncomfortable pressure, like an unnatural storm is approaching. Wind stops whipping around you slightly and tosses various decayed and rotten things into the air, things that have somehow passed through to the Shadowlands from the Skinlands. Those flicker around you carelessly. It really is an incredibly unpleasant situation, and I would like you all to roll willpower for me. Zero. What we got?
I got 2 successes and then 2 1s. So 0.
Well, anyone who has failed their willpower roll, could you take a corpus damage, please? Another bashing corpus damage, as the vibrations sort of liquefy your plasm slightly, and bits of you float off into the dead grey air that has erupted around you. And then, as suddenly as it started, it vanishes.
What the hell was that?
I was under the impression that dangerous and unsettling things were to be in the library, and yet we are 2 for 2 on unusual occurrences en route.
Something disturbing is happening today. I wonder. I don't know. This is bad.
Maybe it's someone trying to stop us from getting there.
Well, why did it stop? Either way.
Can I see anything from where I stand? Anything that's gone? No, it was just
no,
a
nothing.
feeling.
Nothing is unusual. As soon as it went, that's it. The street seems normal again. The quick going about their business. Maybe a few less of them now that the hour is growing a little bit later. Kind of the harshness of the sunlight contrasting with the vast shadow from the building still erected on either side of the patch of wasteland. But no, nothing seems untowards.
Look,
I mean, you're dead.
There are always going to be some kind of obstacles. If there's something that's worth pursuing, there's going to be something that tries to get in your way. We've just got to find a way around it. Simple as that.
You're very determined. You know that, Tammy. I like that about you. Let's
Got to
go.
hold on to the things you got to hold on to.
And onwards.
And onwards.
Onwards. Utilizing Tammy's affinity for travel, you make your way through the rest of the streets of Cincinnati towards the library with no incident, finally emerging on the kind of large public street that it's on. And the one thing you immediately notice that you've seen in a couple of streets abutting it and now on it itself, you are far from the only restless traveling towards the library. You see them around you, individuals, pairs, small groups, all moving, seemingly converging at the front of the library, which is a very large, multi-story, Gothic frontage onto the street, an old and formidable building, which we have visited previously within the Cincinnati Chronicles. So I won't delve into it in too much depth. But there are now a number of the restless gathered outside it, a couple of them kind of like maybe one of them like hovering in the air and looking up at the building, another one touching it and closing their eyes and seeming to feel some resonance from deep within, and still others gathered around, some of them, a couple of them wearing masks, others of them molliated into strange forms, an individual with like long, almost like double length ends to their limbs, sort of like peering around oddly into the windows and looking at the people walking around within. As you watch a couple of those restless walk inside the library, which has its doors wide open, it will be open until the late evening. There are plenty of people just seemingly in there doing library things.
My friends, do you ever get the feeling we're being lured?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a hook in our lips and we're just being pulled. But I don't see if we have any other options than to.
Well, there's always the option of knowing the situation you're entering before entering it. Give me just one moment, please. I'm going to go and find one of the other restless and try and strike up conversation with them.
Sure. You maybe cross the street towards where most of them are gathered outside. There's an individual there. Let's say it's like maybe an older woman. She's carrying some kind of relic umbrella and sort of on tiptoes, kind of peering inside every now and then, kind of like slightly, almost unconsciously moving her way out of the path of the quick who are walking by. As you approach her, she kind of like wheels round and says, "Oh, hello.
Good evening. Oh, I have no idea why every single dead in the city seems to be gathered here. Do you know what the ruckus is?
Well, I don't know why they're all here. I stay to myself mostly, but my little one's collar is in there.
Oh, so you've lost a keepsafe as well. We think someone may be rustling. Are they just going to go in? And I hear it's dangerous in there.
As you say this, a couple of the others, including that odd kind of long-limbed individual, kind of like proceed into the library, and she says, "Well, yes, I've heard tell spectres and the like, but if everyone is going in, there's strength in numbers, I suppose. Are you with those others there? The younger
Yeah,
men and women?
to some degree, yes.
Well, perhaps we can all go in together then."
I'll kind of beckon the others over.
Oh, Edith. She holds a hand out to you.
Brian, pleasure to meet you.
Please to meet you.
Abby.
Aunt.
Hello. Yes. More of the restless are kind of going in now to the library. Are you planning on joining them? You can peer inside if you like. The library looks normal, other than the kind of swarm of restless that are gathering inside there, kind of trying to avoid all the quick walking around, sitting at tables. It's probably worth describing the interior of the library again, because it's quite a distinctive interior. If anyone wants to look it up, they can look up the old Chicago Public Library, which in our world was torn down decades and decades ago, appallingly, because it's gorgeous. But in the world of darkness, it still remains. It has a black and white and red kind of tiled floor, and that kind of bottom floor has two rises on either side of it, great kind of balconies that have huge towering shelf stacks of books with kind of like curled stairways leading up to them. A very grand open building with a glass roof letting a vast amount of light down inside, especially on a day like this. It looks like it's going about its business perfectly normally, with plenty of people sat at tables reading, browsing the shelves, working there.
Okay, I think I'll take a peek.
Sure. You can see a number of restless in there. You see that a number of them, but you cannot see the reason why, seem to be gathering near kind of the back of that bottom floor, where most of the bottom floor is like those tables, basically, where people get a book from up on the stacks on the sides and come down and read it. There are plenty of quick kind of like scattered around there reading and so forth, but they seem to be all gathered near the back looking at something.
Abby, forgive me, but if your niece had been brought here, surely the quick folk the living would be more concerned about a kidnap. Can we...
I mean, I assume all our items aren't just lying around.
I mean, it wouldn't be unusual to see a 10-year-old in the library.
Not see a 10-year-old, but maybe to see whatever.
No, I was responding to Chris rather.
Right, yeah. I would have thought that maybe Melissa would have already looked for her, though.
I suppose this place isn't fancy enough to have indoor cameras for closed circuit observation yet.
It certainly is not. It's far too old-fashioned for that.
Well, are you guys joining me?
Yeah.
Unless they signed the guest book with antagonist and one small child, I think our only option is to go and put our ear to the door.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay. You all stride in. You go past, obviously, the entryway where people will take the books out. You go past a number of desks where members of the public are perusing. You also pass a couple of sets of kind of shelves where people put their books before they go back up to the other sections of the library. Abby, as you walk past, you kind of do a double take, kind of out the corner of your eye. You see a rack of books to be returned to the shelves, entirely full of copies of your children's books.
Well, what do you know? Always those, isn't it? Never the ones you want people to have read.
At
Shame
least
they
they're
didn't
still
do
on the
better.
shelves. At least they're still on the shelves, right?
Abby, are you looking like closely and precisely at that? Like, did you just kind of catch it out of the corner of your eye and kind of and go on, or are you actually looking properly at it?
I think I'm gonna look properly.
Yeah, there aren't any of your books on there.
Oh no, not even those books. What a real shame. Couldn't do anything right. Not even those ones.
So the four of you move onwards, perhaps trailed slightly by Abby, as you move towards the back of... I assume you're going to where the other Restless are gathering to see what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Well, you know the situation that Abby said definitely wouldn't be the case. There is one long table at the back of this lower floor, and it is covered with items. Bits of clothing, toys, boxes, jewelry, oddments, keepsakes of every kind. You see a cat's collar. You see a mirror. You see a tennis racket. A box of punch cards. At the end of the table, you see a youngish girl kind of sitting, dangling her legs from a chair, seemingly kind of almost in a daze, in a daydream. Further over, you see another individual, a middle-aged man who's kind of leaning against the table and cradling his head and just kind of doesn't seem to know where he is or why he's there, but also keeps kind of looking up and blinking and looking around and then going back into some sort of reverie. The Restless are silent as they're gathered round, wide-eyed, staring at this trove of fetters all gathered on this table together. Are any of you four taking any specific action?
What's the reaction from the living to this table?
Nothing. They don't seem to be
Anyone-
noticing it.
Anyone nearby?
Yeah, there's plenty of them sat at nearby tables where they're just reading or going about their business.
I am going to run up to Abby, not Abby, my niece, and make sure she's all right.
Sure.
And like, there's been a couple of occasions like where I've visited her, like usually in the night or like, you know, the back of a birthday party or whatever, where it sort of seemed like she's glanced me, which is why I haven't been getting too close. But I want to try and get her attention.
Absolutely.
Like if there's any connection I can make.
Sure. You kind of burst out from the crowd of Restless who are gathered around, sort of a couple of them kind of looking at each other, seeing if someone's kind of going to be the first one to go and try and reclaim their fetter. And you kind of burst out from these line of individuals and dash forwards towards your niece. You kind of take those steps towards her. And as I say, in the kind of daydream state that she's in, she sort of like glances around and sort of blinks heavily as she sees you coming towards her. You just hear her very softly under her breath murmur, "Aunt Abby?" And then the table erupts in a conflagration of flame, a bonfire that roars, halfway up the huge interior of the building, setting fire to every item on it, to the table, spilling out to nearby tables. The man who was leaning on the table gutters like a torch and staggers backwards, screaming an obscene howl into the air as every member of the Restless shrieks in panic and raw existential terror and dives towards the fire in an attempt to reclaim their fetter. And I think that is where we'll end the session, folks. So, thank you very much for watching and playing. If you've got any comments or questions, please sling them into the chat and we will address them after just a little bit of promo. So if you check down below, you'll see a bunch of links to Twitch, links to YouTube. Please check out the one of those that you're not watching this on. Give us follows and subscribes and ring the bell, blah, blah, blah. You know the business. You've been on the internet before. There's also links to social media and Patreon and Discord. If those are the things that you like to look at, then go look at those. We run 3 weekly series here on Twitch. One is on Mondays, which is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay that Sam is running. One is on Wednesdays, which is Into the Odd. I also run that. And Thursdays is Cincinnati Chronicles, Wraith the Oblivion. That's what you've been watching. Although it's worth pointing out that next week, Cincinnati Chronicles will either not be on or not be on Thursday. We have yet to determine this, but we'll let you know via our social media and adjusted Twitch schedule as soon as we do know. We also run a monthly one-shot. The last of that was Death in Space, but we run loads of others, lots of different systems. One Ring, Troika, Alien, Honey Heist, Dungeon World, various other things. And they're all available over on our YouTube. The next one-shot coming up is on Saturday, June the 18th, which will be Morkborg, which we've run before, and it's going to be a kind of pseudo-sequel. There's also going to be a giveaway for that, which will be a lot of fun. So please do join us for that. And if you like the players here tonight, 2 of them on either side of me here are in Morkborg, so you can enjoy their lovely faces again. So, John, how about you throw some comments and questions our way? Steve, wish I could contact someone about that missing box of old PlayStation games I've not found since I moved house. Now, Steve, it does not surprise me that would be one of your fetters. So,
yeah, I was going to say.
Absolutely. Next.
We had a... Okay.
Don't kick food. When I misspoke at the beginning, Rage. Yep. Rage is indeed the werewolf.
I didn't even know there was a werewolf.
It's good as well, actually, because the vampire one, which was originally called Jihad and then called Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, was very good. And then Rage is still good. It's good. I've definitely got some cards of it. There was a Changeling one as well.
Weird.
Yeah.
I know there was a Mage tarot deck which I owned and have misplaced, and I'm gutted about.
Oh, that's a shame. The art for that was really nice.
Another one on the same theme.
Yeah, despite all my wraith, I am still just a rat in a grave. Very good, very good. 90s kids will know, etc. Don't Kick Food, hello. In 1995, wouldn't it be like super elaborate flight sticks? What was that
in reference to the contents of the computer shop?
Because I automatically imagine it like an Apple store, but those weren't Apple stores in the 90s.
Like those weird peripherals mouse, like the Sidewinder ones that had like buttons.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of peripherals. There'd be like a lot of like old. There'd be a lot of external things that do what internal things do now, like floppy disk drives and CD drives and stuff like that.
Scuzzy peripherals for sale on the shop counter.
Yeah, I know. And also, there would also be games. That was where you got your games. There weren't video.
You got games in large cardboard boxes that were rectangles. Hello, young people, by the way. Also, this has been a great episode. This has been a great episode for me because I've got to rile against 2 different kinds of computing, because I really wanted to go off on one about how we didn't want the dog in the data center in case they peed on the carpet, because data halls had carpet back then.
Yeah. But also, the thing that immediately occurred to me when I thought about putting the dog in there was the hair.
Yeah.
Like coming off and clogging up fans.
I think my point still stands. I'd much rather have a single young idiot can do more damage than one good dog.
The one good dog. Yeah, absolutely. Well got next, John. Inga, every printer I've ever used has been messed with by a Wraith. Yeah.
It was me
Ain't that
all
the truth?
along.
It is an eternal question. Like, how does so many computer things work, but no printers ever? Like,
There is there is a great saying that in the house of a practiced technical person, there is only going to be 2 items: a printer and a gun, so they can shoot the printer when it makes a noise they don't recognize.
that is wonderful, and I'm immediately reminded of the best scene in Office Space. What we got? John, I was very much expecting Pierre to start convincing him to wander away from the plot. What with this thing? Yeah, I know. He was doing a good enough job of that by himself. You made don't make me destroy the fourth wall of railroading, Chris.
It was the fact that just as Chris was like, "Yes, I will go and talk to Emily Perfect," at that point,
role
Pierre
playing your
put his background on,
characters,
and it was like, "Pierre, you're just gonna
you're all just
ultimate
puppets in
shadow
my
move,
play.
convincing a player not to play."
You don't understand. I'm not the shadow. I'm not the shadow of the GM. If I was the shadow of the GM, I would definitely be
All the shadow of the
yeah,
GM.
You'd just be like,
let
why
him
do you keep
wander.
railroading them?
Yeah, why
That's
would you?
not the current meta.
Do a funny voice.
You're not as good
In
as
fairness,
Matt Mercer.
I was concerned about the Wraith play, but I think it's it's been very fun so far. I think, like, actual fun. I thought it was going to be difficult and traumatic and hard, but it's actually been
It's all right,
just
isn't
fun.
it? It's all right. It's just the group. Like, if you're in a good group, you can make anything work, I think. And
Just you wait, Chris. I'm going to ruin your life.
I mean, we may have just witnessed a 9-year-old girl be burnt alive. So
I
there is
specifically didn't say that she'd been set on fire.
Good.
Yeah, 42. All this talk of slipping inside a young tennis player's skin is not safe for work. I did think that as I was saying it. I'm not going to lie, 42.
I mean, skin walking does not sound good.
Skin riding is what it's called.
Skin riding.
Yeah.
Even worse,
it's
really.
loaded with euphemism. It's absolutely loaded with, Santiago's sex tape.
I think it's sort of supposed to be quite creepy as a concept.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Yeah,
like it's not like
inhabiting another person's body.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, absolutely. But no, as I was describing it, I was like, how can I use this language without making it sound really bad? But and I think I failed. So there we go. Well, thanks everyone. We hope we did Wraith the Oblivion proud. This is the first episode of what will probably be a 4-episode arc, because that's what we've managed on all the Cincinnati Chronicles so far. And like I say, next week we'll be back. Well, we might not be back next week, or we might not be, or we won't be on Thursday. So just keep an eye out on our social media and our schedule, and you'll see when we're going to run. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my wonderful players for playing this heavily traumatic game. And we will see you next time for more Cincinnati Chronicles Wraith. Goodbye, everyone.